Yo, peace. Peace. What up? So, I'm gonna do a quick talk with you all about food access, food deserts, and food systems. Because there's I think limited understanding of what this stuff is all about and why this is relevant for people of color in urban areas. So first off, a food desert is defined as any residential area that does not have a full-on grocery store within a mile or more of its residents. Okay? So that means that if you live in a community and the grocery store is over a mile from where you live in a food desert. Okay? Why is this a problem? This is a problem because lack of whole foods, specifically fruits and vegetables, is directly attributable to diet-related illnesses such as diabetes, high blood pressure, congestive heart failure, stroke, cancer, also behavioral disorders such as bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, depression, autism, ADHD are all linked to dietary intake. Okay? In the black community, especially in the inner city, African Americans and Latinos have a higher proclivity for diet-related illnesses. Okay? Processed foods are high in sodium. Processed foods are just overall bad for you. You may live in a food desert and you might have a McDonald's, you may have a Burger King, you may have a Wingstop, but we know that those are not good for you to be consuming every day either. You may also have a bodega, a convenience store, a gas station, a Walgreens, or, any of these small stores, right? But when you go into the bodega, you go into the convenience store, and you go into the 7-Eleven, you're not necessarily going to be able to make, a healthy meal out of the items that you can get there. You can go into the corner store, you got an abundance of alcohol, you have an abundance of high fructose, corn syrup, drinks, candy, things of that nature. This is bad. It's bad for you, it's bad for your body, it's bad for your children. But that's what's available. If you live in the inner city, you may not have a car. You may have to rely on public transportation. As a result of your reliance on public transportation, your capacity to get healthy meals on a regular basis is very much reduced. If I have 3 kids and I have to work full time, it's very difficult to get to the grocery store, right? And make sure that they're back from daycare. Make sure that I cook a meal when I get home. So as a result, what's accessible? The microwave, the Stouffer's meal, right? Hot Pockets, and other BS. It's not just black people, this is all of America that's facing that anyway. So that's what a food desert is, right? So the reason why this is problematic is because I can go into an affluent white community in my area, Richmond, Virginia. There's an area called Carytown. In contrast to an area such as I don't know, we'll just go say North Side, Richmond. Let's just use that as an example. North Side doesn't have any grocery stores within a mile or more of Moss Side and Hawthorne, which is literally the heart of North Side, Battery Park, Pool, right? But I can go to Carytown and park my car at Elwood, Cary and Elwood. I can walk across the street, you got Elwood Thompson's. I can walk across the other street, I got Food Lion. I can walk across the other street, I got Martin's. And then I can look behind Elwood's, a block from it, I got Fresh Market. There's 4 grocery stores within a 1 block radius. Okay? The population density for Carytown versus Northside, people living in abundance in both areas. But one area don't have access to healthy food and the other has an abundance. So this is the disparity that exists. It's a class issue. It's a race issue, right? It's an environmental justice issue, right? Because this is the built environment that we live in. Now, the next piece that I think is important for people to understand is a grocery store is not necessarily the solution to the problem, right? Because people have been disconnected from healthy food in urban areas for generations, right? At least 2, because of, the Great Migration for African people. We moved from the rural area because of racist policies and behaviors and for purported better opportunities, right? To get jobs and employment. So moving into the city, our great grandparents had gardens and farms. Like, we were doing the thing. They had that. But we move into the city and we don't have that no more. So, our grandparents were cooking meals, whole food meals, that were, for the most part, by and large, plant-based, right? Because you couldn't afford to kill every cow. These are delicacies. Like, steak is a delicacy. You know what I mean? Pig, pork, what have you. I don't eat pork, but whatever, pork. You can't kill all your cows. You can't kill all your pigs, right? You can't kill all your chickens. Like, you ain't doing that because where you gonna get more from, right? You might raise chickens or what have you. So, as a result of being disconnected from food, as far as it being grown locally, people get disconnected from preparing whole foods on a regular basis. So that's why your great-grandma food tastes way more delicious than the food that our generation cooking. It's facts. Everybody smack their lips at, grandma's cooking. Why? Why ain't you smacking your lips at, the cooking of your contemporary peers, right? Because the culinary arts have been degenerating generation to generation due to our disconnection from whole foods and local foods that's grown fresh right there that you can get it from out of your garden. All right? So, just because you put a grocery store in the middle of the hood doesn't mean that people know how to cook food. Also, just because you put a grocery store in the middle of the hood doesn't mean that people that live in the hood actually have a stove. I think people take it for granted that people actually have a stove. Some people don't have stoves. Some people live in these little apartments and they don't even have a stove. They're cooking on a hot plate. So these are the realities that people like. You raise your consciousness and awareness and you start thinking outside of yourself. Just because it's normal for you doesn't mean it's normal for everybody else. Just because you live in a subjective reality does not mean that's the objective reality for the masses of people that live within marginalized and low-income communities, right? People on food stamps, SNAP, Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program. If I'm on SNAP, food stamps, then household of one, you get $200 a month if you don't have no income, right? So you need to stretch $200 from the first of the month to the 30th of the month. I would suggest that you, as an individual, challenge yourself to eat only $200 worth of food for the entire month. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, 7 days a week, right? And see how it does for you. What kind of foods are you going to purchase, right? And you don't have culinary art skills. Okay? So these are, you know what I mean? This is the dynamic. So it's not just about a grocery store. It's also education. It's also raising awareness. So what's the food system? A food system is a system of food that includes production, processing, distribution, consumption, and waste management of food products, okay? So production, that's your farmers, right? That's your, the few people that raise your chickens and your cows, your pork, your beef, you know what I'm saying? All these things, that's in the production, right? Your processing is when that food is grown, it's harvested and cleaned, right? And it's packaged, right? So that's your butchery for those, that's doing the meat thing. That's, your culinary kitchens, right? Or your commercial kitchens where they clean your vegetables and stuff, put it inside of a package and get it to you, right? The get it to you part is the distribution, right? So that's your trucks, right? Your refrigerated trucks that's moving here and there. These are your storage facilities where the food is stored, to get it to the next end user. That's your grocery store, right? That's your farmer's market, right? That's the delivery to your house, right? Those are all pieces of the distribution. Consumption, that's your caterer. That's your chef, right? That's your what do you call it? Food processor, right? The inventors that make products, right? That's the consumption piece. That's you at your dinner table, right? After you done got the vegetables from wherever, that's your family eating, right? That's the consumption part, right? There are people that do that for you, right? And people that make, money doing it for you too. And the waste management. I mean, it's pretty obvious. That's the people that pick the trash up. Like, what happens to the scraps of the food that you eat, right? Who come pick the trash up? That's the trash man, right? Who does the composting, right? All the food that you throw in the trash don't need to go into the landfill. It can go into a composting program to help build healthy soil, Also, if we want to get real sophisticated, it could go into, a biogas system where you can create energy from the methane that's produced from, the decomposition of food products, right? So when we talk about food systems around those 5 points, we explain that there are jobs along every point of the food system. Whether you got farmers, people that raise cattle, or you got butchers, or people that are working inside of a space where they, harvest and process the food, whether there's distributors, people that are third party, that are getting the vegetables from the farmer and selling it to you, or, people that have a storefront or run a farmer's market, or somebody that's a caterer that's on the consumption side, or somebody that runs a restaurant, or somebody that, makes a product, makes a meal, or makes some cakes or something like that, and is slanging it to you, and then somebody that you might pay to come pick up your compost to turn it into soil and sell it back to the farmer. Okay, so when we talk about food being a very dynamic space to address multiple needs inside of our community all at once. We're talking about the food system, and that the food system gives people opportunity to be entrepreneurial along all those points. And you can also scale up businesses along each one of those points, right? So when I talk about food access and I talk about urban agriculture, I'm talking about it has the capacity to employ people in our urban communities, and that is very important for us to start building around job creation, workforce development, entrepreneurship, specifically social entrepreneurship, because this issue of food insecurity is a problem that can be solved with, a business solution. So when you have a business solution to a social problem, you become a social entrepreneur. You did? So for people of color, we don't live in a world where we have people that have trust funds and endowments that can just drop money into our, business startup ideas, and all of a sudden we are to scale. That's not our reality. Unlike some of our, other counterparts who have networks of friends and family members that have money in abundance like that, we don't got that by and large, especially if you come from the hood. You might have somebody that you knew that might have dealt dope, that might have sold dope, or somebody that might have had their own business, but for the most part, you don't really have access to, to liquid assets in order to make those type of maneuvers. So as social entrepreneurs, we approach, the nonprofit world with a business mind. Like, how can I get this grant, right? And use that grant as an investment into the infrastructure so that I don't have to ask for another grant. Okay? So, that's kind of how it goes down. Food systems, it's important for us to start thinking about systems as well, not just like individual siloed out problems, right? I talk about food access and I talk about urban agriculture as a solution, not the solution. It's a part of an intricate puzzle of things that can be done, but it's somewhere that you can start, right? That can blossom out into a bunch of other things, right? We deal with community organizing, community mobilization, and building capacity in the community. And on an urban farm, you can very well do a lot of those things. The urban farm gives people opportunity to learn a vocational skill. Also, you learn team building. You also learn, how to dialogue, talk to people, learn people's strengths, assets, what people bring to the table. Those things are all, important so that you can further go deeper in terms of addressing your community's needs. So people, who's going to show up, who's going to be down for that action, and, what people's level of awareness is on various issues, and where one person might be good at speaking on a topic or another person might not. You got to know these things in order to really be effective and move the needle forward in a quantitative way. Quantitative as in a way that you can measure it, numerically. There's qualitative, impacts that can be met as well. The camaraderie, the building of relationships, right? The changing of understanding, the enhancement of proficiency, the increased efficacy, the community resilience. Those are all qualitative metrics. But until we start ascribing metrics to our community work, we will continue to be running around like a hamster in a hamster wheel, because you're not measuring whether or not you whether you made an impact or whether you move the needle forward, right? People love to be like, yeah, we did a good work. Like, how do you measure that? How do you know you actually did a good work? I mean, I wasn't thinking about qualitative. I wasn't thinking about measuring the work until, I started urban farming. We was like, oh yeah, man, we brought the people together. It's amazing. And yeah, that's a qualitative thing. But quantitatively, did you change something in your community, like in the built environment? Can you go into your hood and say that it was one thing before and it's another thing after? These are, we start to be very scientific and start to be more scientific in our approach, pragmatic in our approach to community change, and we start seeing, all right, boom, 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 we're making progress. We're shifting things, we're evolving things, and we were once at one point and now we're at another. Alright, I've been talking your head off. Peace and power. I hope this helps somebody. I hope if you're interested in this conversation, this helps push your understanding a little bit further ahead. One love. Peace.